Another way to work with wax is with rubber molds, or other. There's a couple of different other types of molds I'm going to show you. But rubber molds are flexible, and you can. There's some different types. In jewelry, a lot of times they use these thermally. There's a machine heats up the sheets of rubber. Your original model has to be made of something metal that can withstand the pressure and the heat. I haven't used a lot of those. But what I've used is a two-part mixing kind of rubber that you pour in and make the mold off of that. This is a wax that was pulled. This is an open face kind of an original clay was made, and this mold was made, little clay wall, and poured in. And there's some written instructions on that on the D2L page. But then the wax was poured into there and pulled back out. And then another one, I find the original. So here was the clay original. That was mounted on a board, and the first part of the mold is kind of hard to see. Maybe we'll cast something in this later. Was there, made over the top of that. Actually, I think this originally, I do a lot of steps. I made an alginate mold, which is like the stuff they use at the dental office. There's instructions on that on the D12 page as well. Made another wax that was mounted, then the rubber was made off of that, so I get more detail. I find I have more control with the, even though this is a hard clay, this is clay over here. Clay over here. Even though this is a harder clay, I like to get a detail of wax before I make the rubber mold. And so this was made, and then another part of it that I could do, the two parts though that it had, a front and a back. And then you have a little hole that was cut there. Now, I used a syringe, kind of things. Actually, I think I used this guy for some of that to force the wax in there really well. But you can, that's a syringe. There's also pressurized injection pots, wax pots. You just have to be very, very careful because this hole has to be fit against the nozzle on that, or you will spray hot wax all over your hands and you will have severe burns. So generally there's a special kind, those are generally designed for a specific type of mold, and you want to make sure that you do that process right, or you will get stuff sprayed all over you. Anyhow, a little bit more. This is a little bit easier to control with these little guys. Anyhow, all right. So this is a shot of a rubber mold with a plaster mother mold. So you can use less rubber. So the thin part inside is out of the expensive rubber, and then the outside shell is out of plaster. There's some directions on that on the D2L page as well. All right, a couple of other simple, a little bit quicker, open face type molds. One is essentially what I'm doing is pressing the little figurine there, whatever object, into a water-based clay, kind of a clay press mold. So there, got a little bit more of him. And then the other material, silly putty. I don't know if you can read the thing on there. Looks ridiculous, doesn't it? That works really well as well. I'm going to take a hunk of it off. Yes, we're playing with silly putty right now. Put back in there so it stays relatively clean. Smaller piece. That's the jumbo. You can get it in smaller containers too. I'm just going to take and press it in and get it back out again. This guy, this little head, it's a wax head. Push that into there. So you make little quickie molds off of things. And again, they're not going to be perfect, but they might give you something to work with. This, and then especially if you don't have a hot pot, let's do it like let's zoom in here. So using the hot tool to melt the wax into a small mold, especially with jewelry size, things can work really well. Sometimes it's hard because it gets a little cool, so you have to get it warm enough to really kind of flow into all the little details though. And we'll let that cool until it's completely cooled. You can speed that up by dipping it in cold water, but you want to wait until, see, it's liquidy still, it's wet still. Don't move it around. Wait until it's solidified to the point, and then it's stuck down here. I should have put it on a little board to move it around and stuff. Anyway, so we're going to go over and look at the pot of wax. All right, so it's good to have an apron on. Wax, you want to be careful of wax. The fumes, again, you want to have fresh air coming in. And you also want to have, make sure that you don't have it up too hot. Right now, it's not, this is still melting. I'm kind of rushing things. I should wait for it to all be done and mix it up. But anyway, let's do things difficult. You can use a small paper cup, and you'll see like this sort of thing. Careful of plastic cups, like the Solo plastic cups, they'll melt. But for this amount, I'm just going to use a spoon. Oh, also I wouldn't want it so hot that it was, if the smoke was coming off of it, turn it down. You're creating too much smoke. It's not good for you to breathe. So I'm just going to kind of pour it in. Sure you can see where my end of there. It's taking a little bit of it. It's kind of still not flowing as well. You guys wait for your wax to completely melt, but it's just drilling it in there. Boom. That's the exciting thing. That here is that little rubber mold. Use a little rubber band to hold it together. Make sure this. Now, if you're using a syringe, you're gonna make sure you get all the wax out and kind of go back and forth afterwards. I'll kind of show you. Here's that little rubber mold. Make sure it works. Have it down, pull up, and then squirt it in. Oh. And then make sure that you do that a couple of times. Don't splatter wax all over, hot wax all over yourself, so that it's not clogged. All right, so I'm going to wait for those to cool. Silly putty mold, quick mold of that head. Just take this guy out carefully. And you can see, hopefully you can see, little head there. Not great detail. Try to get him in focus, but reasonable detail. All right, let's see what we got. So this is the water-based clay. So we got some somewhat detail here, kinda. Maybe with a couple of tries it'll get better, but and you could wash off the with some water, wash the clay residue off the wax. It's one possibility. What are these? Oh, the petroleum jelly. I mean the silly putty sort of just pops right off. All right, so here are some of the results. There's the leaf that was pressed into clay with the wax, and I washed the clay off of it. The little action figure dude that was pressed into the water-based clay. Both of these are water-based clay, and I washed the clay off of it. Now there's bubbles that got trapped. Actually, his gun at the waist there came out pretty well. So it might take a couple of tries. Then there's this guy with the silly putty, which popped right out, but probably should have tried doing it a few more times to get a little bit better detail. Again, if the wax is cool, it'll chill off before it gets into little details. There's the army man in the silly putty. Oh, and there's a little bit of a face to the side there. I forgot that was there. And then there's the face, which is kind of like the way when I move the silly putty, it distorted. So you can kind of play with that, even like experiment with it. And you can make multiples and build things out of these. It's not just to recreate something that already exists, but to kind of experiment with it. And here's the little frontal skull from the rubber mold, which was originally made out of clay, then wax. Then all right, long process. Anyway, so all those are possibilities, and it takes a little bit of experimenting and trying things. These are really quick methods, except for the rubber mold. It takes a lot longer. So I would, if you want to invest in that time into the rubber mold. If you think you've got something that you want to reproduce a lot, then that's one way to kind of go. All right.